libertarians are pussies. And what they want to do is go up to suck up to their liberal friends and say, no, but I want to legalize prostitution, and I want to legalize heroin, and oh sure, keep the post office.
Alright, so I'm assuming that this clip is relatively new, although I'm not sure, but I do know that Ann Coulter more or less said the exact same thing about 6 or 7 years ago on John Stossel's program. Basically, she said libertarians are, well, you know the word, it's the one she just said. I'm not going to hand YouTube a reason to ban me. But she basically insulted libertarians and said that all we want to do is suck up to our liberal friends and say, hey, we want to legalize pot too, we're anti-war too. Okay, now this is anecdotal, but I've never known, seen, or heard a libertarian in my life actually suck up to a typical liberal person in this regard. In fact, most of the time, the reason why I at least like to point out to a typical liberal that we agree on ending the war on drugs, for example, is I like to point out that they agree the government is terrible at managing things, and unintended consequences are a seriously destructive problem that comes about from the good intentions of our government. I try and point that out to them so they might start seeing that simply having government come in and try and legislate problems away doesn't work, as they advocate for in almost every other regard. And in fact, government inevitably makes things worse. There's never been any sucking up I've ever seen. I've only ever seen libertarians attempt to point out how inconsistent your typical liberal is on these issues. The other thing to point out is that you can go through the Twitter feeds of Bernie Sanders or AOC, for example, when they say that we need to legalize marijuana. And you can see an army of libertarians commenting, and it's generally them saying, wow, for once they actually got something right. Okay, that's not sucking up. That is libertarians insulting them because nearly everything AOC and Bernie Sanders believe and support is so beyond absurd that it's shocking they actually make some sense from time to time. So I don't know what the hell Ann Coulter is talking about here. I don't know what she's been reading or who she's been talking to, but it's certainly nothing I've read, and it's certainly no one I've spoken with. And Ann Coulter has apparently been reading into this odd narrative for 6 or 7 years, because that's how long she's been having that nice little one-liner of an insult on her mind. If you're gonna insult us, fine, but get some new material at least every half a decade. Come on. But here's a little question I would ask Ann Coulter. Are we sucking up to liberals when we tell them Medicare for all or socialized medicine would be a nightmare? Are we sucking up to liberals when we say gun control would be ineffective and it would be an abhorrent affront on people's natural rights to defend themselves? Are we sucking up to liberals when we say the Department of Education should be demolished because it has an abysmal track record and is producing some of the most intellectually stunted kids we've ever seen in a long time? Are we sucking up to liberals when we say the war on poverty needs to be ended as it's responsible for ironically keeping people into poverty, taking incentives away, and actively making the decision to take on higher paying work a bad one because of the welfare cliff? Are we sucking up to your typical liberal when we say hate speech is overblown and affirmative action is racist and bakeries shouldn't be forced to sell a cake to a soon-to-be wed couple if the baker doesn't want to? So what exactly the hell are you talking about, Ann Coulter? I've never known a libertarian in my life that cared one iota of what a typical liberal thinks of them. The only extent that I care about what they think of me is equal to the extent that I think I can change their mind about how much they should be worshipping government, which should be a lot less. And I point that out to them very, very often. That, to me, is in no way sucking up to them. But that's all for now. Like, subscribe, and please share this video because it's very, very helpful. And take it easy, my people.